Good morning. This is the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing starting this Monday, June 4th, and looking at the upcoming week. And if we look at the precipitation observed on the left over the past 7 days, not very wet. It's been fairly dry, a little of a break in our storm track. Precipitation amounts in these light blue shades, basically 1/100th of an inch to 1/10th of an inch, and in many areas, not much precipitation at all. On the right-hand side, you can see that that's well below normal for this time of year. Looking at the larger scale view across the country with the upper level maps as well as the satellite imagery, you can see there's a trough of low pressure moving through California, sweeping up lots of moisture across the Great Basin from south to north. Typically, whenever we have a trough of low pressure approaching, that tends to improve dispersion. But some of the issues that we do have ongoing is snow cover across many of our basin areas, maintaining low-level inversions through much of the day. So looking at the overall dispersion for this Monday afternoon, looking at the ventilation index, you can see that the best dispersion, areas in white and some yellow across our southern portions of Nevada and into southern parts of Utah and the Arizona Strip. Areas further north still quite poor in terms of overall dispersion. That's due to the snow cover and the deeper inversions that occur during this darkest time of year. Now, if we take a look at the individual components that make up that ventilation index, on the transport wind side, you can see that winds across the Great Basin fairly light, except across southern portions of Nevada, where some wind gusts could be in excess of 25 or 30 miles per hour. So this is why we have the better overall dispersion across southern Nevada, as well as the higher elevation chain of the Wasatch. As we look at the right-hand side, the vertical mixing, you can see quite low across the Great Basin, better as you head to areas further south. Now, taking a look at Tuesday afternoon, we can see still a trough of low pressure kind of hanging across the western portion of the Great Basin. Areas in green signify lots of cloud cover, and that's the other thing. This time of year, when the clouds blot out the sun, we don't get the daytime heating and the mixing that we normally would. But the low pressure itself will have somewhat better dispersion across some of the higher terrain of the Wasatch and southern Nevada, but by and large, most of the area, as you see here in purple, fairly poor overall dispersion. Now, the individual components, transport wind side looking pretty good across most of Nevada except northwestern portions of Nevada. Lighter winds across Utah. Pretty good transport flow across parts of Idaho as well. Even though the overall ventilation index is fairly low, could be some good horizontal mixing in some of these areas. Vertical mixing, though, especially in the valleys here, given by these grayish shades and whitish shades, quite poor. Better where you see the colors going from blue to green to yellow. We're looking at Wednesday afternoon, still in a broad area of low pressure. Another low pressure trough approaching far northern California. And overall, you start to see that area in purple starting to shrink in coverage. Areas in red to yellow signify a gradual improvement in dispersion. And if we look at the overall components that make up that dispersion, you can see through here there is still some overall decent transport flow across Utah and parts of Nevada. In terms of vertical mixing, still quite poor in these whitish and purplish areas, better where you see the multicolors. Now, looking at the Utah forecast clearing index produced by the National Weather Service, you can see that the trend is towards improving dispersion as we go through the week, especially from south to north, given by these highlighted shades of green to yellow, orange, and red, which signify better overall dispersion. Today should be the worst day. Now, in terms of precipitation and what we're expecting today through Wednesday, with that moisture coming up from the south, you can see that's where we're expecting most of the precipitation, anywhere from a ½ inch to locally 1.5 inches across Nevada, far northern Arizona, southern Utah, and through the Wasatch Range as well. This darkest shade of green indicates 1/4 to a ½ inch of precipitation. A lot of this is going to be in the form of snow, so should be wetting things down quite a bit. If we look further down the road, as we look at Thursday, again, not much has changed. A broad low pressure through here, but we're under the core of it, so the transport flow should not be particularly strong. Dispersion, though, we see a lot less of the purple, so there should be some better overall dispersion, at least in the vertical. The nighttime inversion should not be very strong by this time period, so dispersion should be doable for burns at this point. Still lots of clouds and precipitation across parts of the area. This is for Thursday. Now on Friday, that trough of low pressure starts exiting the region. You start seeing some clearing across far northwestern areas, still lingering clouds and moisture across most of the eastern two-thirds of the Great Basin. On the right-hand side, only a few small pockets of that purple or very poor ventilation value. Otherwise marginal, but not as bad as it could be across other areas. Now on Saturday, high pressure starts to build back in through here. We still have a northwesterly flow. Dispersion, though, because of the northwesterly flow drying things out and maybe getting a little bit more sun, that could actually improve things during the afternoon hours where you see pockets of yellow to actually white. That'll be your best overall dispersion. And as we go into Sunday, it looks like the best dispersion will be over Utah, where you see the yellow to clear shades, decreasing dispersion as you head further out towards Nevada and towards the border of California because of high pressure that we see here on the left starting to build in. Now, if we look at precipitation that we expect Friday through Saturday, in addition to what we saw earlier, still some precipitation, especially across Utah, about 1/3 of an inch in the maximum areas, a bit more across the Arizona Strip. And if we look further down the road towards next week, the 8 to 14-day official outlook indicates on the left temperatures a little warmer than normal. We don't expect any Arctic air intrusions, but on the right-hand side, you also notice that it gets wetter. So the storm track, not coming from Alaska, but coming more off the Pacific in a typical El Nino fashion, will be something that we'll be dealing with for much of next week. This concludes our briefing. Have a great day, and our next smoke briefing will be this coming Wednesday.